We have both broken our noses.
No, she's being silly. Of course, we've started a cult.
So yeah, I also before I even get into anything, my mother pointed out I told you the wrong date. Yesterday was not the 8th. Today is the 8th. So it is the 8th of April, and it is day 19 of lockdown. And we will address our faces. We've got to that stage now. I think I mentioned on the first night of doing this that we were going to do sort of various bits and bobs. I was threatening to do a full face mask and pore strip on Chris today. My hair also, by the way, has got a hair mask on it. So I'm going to go wash that off shortly, but I'm just giving it a bit of TLC today. The pore strip, Chris has never done one before, so I'm very excited about the removal of this. So do you know what happened? It's one of these. Sorry, it's flipped, but that's what they are. They are little sort of bendy strips that you wash your face and then you put them on your nose and then you put them there and they dry and they pull out from your pores all the nasty little sort of gross bits of oils and blackheads and stuff. Now, I did my first one probably years ago. I only do them maybe like twice a year, maybe. But none will ever be as good as that first one. That first one took it off and it was absolutely gross. But it was very satisfying because I was like, oh, all that stuff was in my head and now it's not in my head. So I'm quite looking forward to taking Chris's off.
Yeah.
I want to look at all the gross stuff from in your face.
You're a weirdo.
Yep. I think I've had a particularly doolally lockdown day today. Slightly lost my marbles. Several things. Not necessarily entirely been like sort of frustrated or sort of cooped up stir crazy, but I just think I've slightly lost it. So I had a bit of a meltdown in the kitchen that was triggered by we've got a big sort of pan drawer and something fell down the back of it, which meant that we couldn't shut the drawer. But the gap is a bit narrower than my arms will reach in, so you've got to sort of be a bit creative and like get in there with like tongs and stuff to get stuff out. Which, you know, that's a little irksome every now and again. And when it happened, I shouted, is fair to say, I fucking hate your Tupperware.
Perfectly reasonable Tupperware.
I did immediately, basically, sort of like, I'm sorry, that was ridiculous. But I had, don't shake your head at that, I did. I came in and apologised.
But I mean, it wasn't as bad as you're making it out. I don't think I wasn't sat here on the couch fuming, waiting for an apology. I'd largely forgotten about it.
You did look quite confused when I came in. I was like, I'm sorry, I was a dick about the Tupperware.
I'd really moved on.
But
not really an
it
issue.
Was just, I think, a symptom of me being generally a little bit doolally. Also, I was sat in the garden and it was a lovely sunny day, and that should have been a pleasurable experience. But one of the neighbours, I'm not sure which one, had really loud music playing that had the bass sort of really pumping, and it was obtrusively loud. Intrusive, it was annoying anyway, and it was just meaning that I could not enjoy being sat outside, and just knowing that I couldn't go anywhere else was just a bit like, that's really inconsiderate, and it was really getting my goat. And then I had an email from a service that we use through work. I won't name names because they do not come out of this story well. But basically, we pay quite a hefty amount of money every month for a service that we currently can't use. So I wanted to see if I could sort of suspend our account without sort of losing it, just sort of be like, okay, well, can we come back to this later, or can you give us some wiggle room on the amount that we're charged or anything like that? And they sort of led me a merry dance for a few days, sort of initially just went no, and then when I went, okay, well, we'll be leaving then, and then they sort of went, oh, hang on, we'll get someone to give you a call tomorrow, and then that call never happened, so then I had to chase them, and then they came back again today basically saying, no, you can't, so let us know what you want to do. So I was pissed off, so I got very angry, and I had to send them an angry email, but I was so angry that I decided that I was going to have the shower first and then send the email, which would have been like so that I had time to calm down. But actually in the shower I was just going, and then another thing. Thankfully I did send a perfectly professional email, but I did essentially tell them to jog on. But yeah, just lots of little irky things today. I'm irked.
I would say.
So I put some stuff on my face.
As the person that lives with you.
Yeah.
I would say today that you have been grumpy.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say never unreasonably so.
Oh, that's nice.
I would say, because, like, I mean, quite apart from the fact that being shut in and not being able to go to the shops or the pub and do things is enough to make all of us grumpy right now a bit anyway. Also, it was just always things like, people playing their music too loud is annoying, and companies being a bit unreasonable in what is obviously a difficult time for everyone is annoying, and I mean, my Tupperware...
it's really annoying, man.
I don't really see the problem, but... You're allowed your quirks, aren't you? So, that's fine.
There used to be room in that drawer for everything I had, and then your Tupperware moved in, and now there's not enough room.
Well, if that's not a metaphor for something, I don't know what is.
I love you, don't leave.
I'm not
allowed.
Not allowed to break up with you.
Yes.
Based on current government advice.
Okay, good. Thanks, government.
Yeah.
I don't think we were hanging by a thread anyway, but it's good to know.
The Corona guidelines, the COVID-19 official government information, and they said no, she's in it.
No, you're stuck with it.
She's grumpy enough today as it is.
Yeah, wait for a day when she's in a good mood.
Give you something to look forward to.
Yeah, that's not happening. But yeah, so yeah, been a bit grumpy today, but actually. Overall, I'm sort of finding it kind of amusing that I'm grumpy now. Like, it's sort of like, oh, this is just sort of becoming a bit silly. So yeah, but yeah, I was also a bit tired again, and that sort of bothered me because I sort of was like, oh, I hope I'm not sort of having a bit of a rough time with fibro all through this because that'll just be even more miserable. But yeah, I think getting angry is very invigorating. So I had a very invigorating angry shower, and now I'm like doing things to hair and face and sort of do a bit of TLC, and hopefully I will be less grumpy later. Maybe not. So yeah, but yeah, I was going to also, as you see, doing this to his nose. I've done it to mine because I was doing it to his, but his was that I wanted to do it. But I also wanted to put a face mask on you. But then I realised all this very intermittent face fur is not allowing me to do that. Because I'd have to like sort of just put it in dabs, and really the idea was to sort of cake it on, let it draw everything out, and then wash it off. So that's just going to have to be a treat for whenever you eventually do shave.
Okay. All right.
So face masks is a treat for me to look forward to for two reasons, because it will mean that it's a nice TLC pampering time, but it will also be the day you shave.
So we'll give it a couple of months.
Yeah, quite. It is going to be like that, isn't it? But there's other mask talk. Well, there's a few different bits of mask talk.
Lots of mask talk today.
Should we go to the fun mask talk first?
Well, I don't know. Should we go serious mask talk?
Okay.
And then, because it seems as if the government advice has changed on masks. There's been a bit of a turnaround. If you haven't heard about this, you should probably know about it. Basically, we were previously told, don't wear masks,
it's not worth it, it won't help you, they're
kind of, after a couple of minutes, you're breathing into them, they become sort of moist, and the germs can kind of pass through them anyway.
Which I think we said to you previously.
And don't get them because they're not any good to you, but you're stopping a medical professional potentially getting hold of them. Now, while it's still good to prioritise medical professionals for the masks because they're on the front line and they're dealing with a lot of sick people, it turns out maybe having the mask wasn't as useless as previously suggested.
Both for protecting you, but also for protecting others, because one of the things that I didn't realise about the masks, they think, because I was assuming this 2 metre distance was sort of based on if you cough, that's sort of how it'll, no, that's actually just how much it'll get through the air if you're just breathing out. So this is more that it will protect other people around you from droplets in your breath if you're perhaps infected and you don't know yet. If you're wearing a mask, it will keep it all in there, basically. And then, obviously, still then don't touch the mask and touch things and all of that sort of stuff. But having the mask on will also help remind you not to touch your face. It will protect other people around you. You'd still need to wash them regularly, and ideally, you'd only wear them when you went out and you're not going to be out for hours and hours, hopefully. But yeah, so they've sort of done a switcheroo, which I suspect, and actually a friend of mine, Elle, who's been very well researched and well read on all of this since before it sort of was really on my radar, suspects was that they needed basically for people not to stockpile because they needed it more desperately for the medical profession. And now they've kind of gone, okay, we've sorted out the sort of supply lines for that theoretically. Now it will actually help slow the transmission in the general public, which all well and good. I do sort of see their thinking there. But the thing I'm getting really irked about is the story changing, feeling like I'm being lied to or feeling like things are being kept from us. The story with sort of how much Boris Johnson was working before he went into hospital, I don't think holds water. He is still in intensive care, but apparently improving. But like they were sort of saying, oh, he's still working. He's still definitely running things. I'm like, well, firstly, is he? And secondly, should he be?
Yeah, if he is running things, why? Because he's not well and maybe someone on top form should be taking care of things. And if he isn't running things, that's fine, but why are you telling us
why
that
are you
he
sort
is?
of... Is it just a sort of we're going to panic? Because I'm not going to panic if Boris Johnson isn't in charge. I'm not... Well, I might panic depending on who they put in his place. So yeah, I think currently it might be Raab with Rishi Sunak as sort of third deputy.
Yeah,
I'd rather Rishi than Raab, but that's for separate reasons that I won't get into.
Third in line to the throne, isn't he? Old Rishi Sunak.
Rishi, yeah. Well, at the moment, he's my favourite of them.
They're gonna have a proper red wedding. Does that work?
He hasn't watched Game of Thrones,
does that work
and it shows. No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that doesn't work.
I'm a sweet summer child.
Yes, that sort of worked. Well, no, that...
Show us the results on the swingometer, Jon Snow. How's that?
It's sweet that you're trying. You could just watch Game of Thrones.
Oh, there's a lot of that though, and who has the time?
All of us.
I'm surprisingly
have
busy.
The time.
I sat down this morning. Well, I say morning. I sat down.
Are you ready for this busy day that he's had?
I sat down mid-afternoon to try and watch WrestleMania.
An old WrestleMania.
I haven't even made it through. It's only 4 hours. Right, I sat down mid-afternoon. It's now 6-7 hours later. I've only made it past the first match because I keep getting distracted by other things that I need to do.
You need to do.
Like, I need to read articles about stuff online
And you need to do some online shopping, don't you?
I have to do some online shopping.
Yeah.
Not doing much shopping right now, but do a little bit of online shop. No.
Do you want to tell them what you...
Well, given that it's important that we're all wearing masks now, and actually we've had some masks made for us.
Yes, they haven't arrived yet, but a friend of mine, before we get into your purchases, a friend of mine very kindly is making masks out of sort of scrap material that she's got. So she sent me a message last night and just went, making masks for people free of charge. And I've got somebody like driving them around to people's houses. So I instead sort of said, well, if you're not going to take any money, who can I make a donation to something? And she was like, oh yes, okay, so I'm donating to Feed Newport, which another friend of ours is volunteering for at the moment, and sort of mentioned that they are struggling a little bit for supplies, so I'm going to donate to them in lieu of the masks. But yeah, she's making them for us, let us pick our materials, and very quickly knock them up. They are actually quite simple to make because it's 2 loops to go around there and then sort of a big bit of material for here. But they're lovely. But yeah, we don't actually have our hands on them quite yet. But that was very kind of her, and I will wear them. Now that I think I was also previously kind of thinking I'd be a bit self-conscious sort of wearing a mask because I don't want people to sort of think I'm being like overly cautious. But now they've sort of said, yeah, wear them, so I'll wear it. But I think there is a line of self-conscious that maybe I would still not cross. But Chris has other ideas.
Well, given that we're supposed to be wearing masks anyway, and also they say change your masks regularly, right? So maybe one mask won't be enough.
Yeah, how much are you getting now?
I've bought an additional mask.
He has.
I've bought a mask. What it is...
Brace yourselves.
I became fascinated, right, by these masks a while ago when we were watching a news report about Basically, this was at the start of isolation when they were starting to
It was
kind of
brilliant.
advise people to go home and stay in, and I think it was before the pubs had officially closed, or maybe the day that they'd officially closed the pubs.
They were still open. She was in Leicester Square, and Leicester Square was very quiet.
Yes.
And that was sort of the point she was making. But I think the point was that they were still open, but there weren't people around. I think.
And so this woman is delivering, bless her, to the best of her ability, delivering a news report saying the streets around me are empty, and it. Just at that point, as she's saying that, that's when we see a man stalking across the back of the scene, just walking around, very obviously not
he
in an
knew
empty
what he was
street,
doing and walked very deliberately through the back of shot with he sauntered, I would say.
And he was wearing a very distinctive outfit because he was dressed in a full face mask with a sort of half-foot long beak.
It was longer than half foot long. I'd say it's probably
Yeah.
about a foot long. Yeah, it was
right.
big.
Well,
it's like the old.
From my reading, half a foot is standard. But
Oh, right, okay.
Maybe an extra long one. Good for him. But so this what it was a leather mask that with what looked like a bird beak, a pointy beak on the front of it, and I thought that was a weird thing. You'd actually seen one before, didn't you? So you recognised it.
Yeah, the old. I'm not sure exactly the history on them, but they were worn during the plague. I think mainly by by doctors, but also by the people who were doing the bring out your dead. The people
the plague
that had to work
would wear
in the
them.
street. And they do look like a sort of big bird, like a black raveny kind of with a big, quite threatening. They're quite imposing. Their thinking back then, which you've done some reading on, basically was they'd put like herbs and things in there, so you'd be breathing up the nice smell of the herbs and not the sort of corpsey smell.
Well, basically, 'cause it wasn't just to smell nice. They sort of misunderstood how the plague was being carried. They didn't really fully understand germs, so they thought, if you can't smell the putrid air where the dead people are, you can't catch the disease, right? So if you
sort of by accident is partially kind of helpful, at least if you're not.
Yeah, well, the idea is they've got this long beak, leather beak, not too many nostril holes in the beak, and they fill that beak with herbs and spices and things, so they can then smell the nice herbs and spices. They can't smell the putrid air. They can't get ill. That isn't good science, but what it does mean is, if you wear one of those masks, it's directing your breath kind of out through these little nostril holes and down, not towards anyone that you're talking to, and they can't really get their germs at you, so you're mutually kind of protected.
You can't get their germs
they can't
at
get the
you.
germs at you, just no matter how hard they try. And that means it's actually kind of mutually beneficial. Actually, even though it wasn't good science, the design actually kind of works. And
it's very eye-catching.
Now, when we saw it on this news report, I sort of put it to the back of my mind. It wasn't, it was an intriguing thing that I'd seen on the news, but no.
Yeah, it amused me. I paused it and filmed it so that I could show other people. And actually, one of your friends, was it Shani?
Yes.
Somebody else also shared it, had also spotted it, because it was either just before or just after that day's 5 p.m. press conference. So I had News 24 on. It's not called that anymore, BBC News, but the news channel on, and we clocked it, and both of us noticed it, so it was noticeable enough. And yeah, quite distinctive. I think he was just making a bit of a merry joke about, ha ha ha, it's the plague. But, ha ha ha, it's the plague.
Well, I think there's going to be a lot. Now we are supposed to be wearing masks. Now's the time to get yourself a mask, whatever mask you fancy. That might be dye.
Oh, I know what that is. I will go and...
Alright, I'll carry on talking about masks, so you can...
Yeah.
That is someone dropping a webcam at my door for a project that I'm not going to talk about yet, but you'll hear more about that shortly in the coming days. But meanwhile, plague masks. I'm just very distracted by them talking now. But plague masks, while we have to wear masks, why not treat yourself to a fancy mask? And I think normally I'd feel sort of self-conscious about wearing a mask. I'm not sure if I'll be able to wear it to the shops because it's like kind of full, covers the face and has like eye holes. I don't want to think I'm trying to mug them. I don't want to creep people out. But I might wear it on dog walks. That would be nice.
In the woods.
Or just around the house. Just around the house for romantic moments with Ellie. And it's going to be... Why not? If we have to wear a mask, why not treat yourself to a fun mask,
I think I am amused at the idea of you wearing this around the woods. I think you'll be very scary, and hopefully people will keep their distance because you're scary.
I'm up for like if small children see me in that mask and decide to kind of cower behind their parents' legs rather than bringing their little germ bomb selves towards me.
They can't get their germs at you.
They can't get their germs at me. I will be safer from the germy kids.
Some other friends of ours actually have gone along the same line. To be fair, actually, one of them already had a collection of gas masks because things. But actually has bought a couple more. He was already into them and knew stuff about them, but actually he bought a few extra ones for this and just kind of thought, well, they are actually good for keeping all sorts of sort of biomaterials out, as long as you've got a decent filter. And yeah, another thing though also, if people do see you out in it, they won't know who you are. So you can't really be self-conscious about that. Sorry, Lucy's very excited.
I think
somebody came to the door. Yeah. Did you notice? I was very good because actually David, my brother, was dropping off a webcam for Chris so that he can do some streaming comedy stuff. So as soon as I picked it up off the doorstep, alcohol rubbed my hands, so they didn't have time to wash them because it was coming straight back to you. But so maybe Lucy is just really into the smell of alcohol.
Probably.
Could be that.
Booze sounds like a mum.
But yeah, so actually I guess you could wear the masks and just not care that you look maybe a little strange because nobody will know who you are.
And if everyone is wearing masks, then it's it's going to be the new.
You have another mask that perhaps we'll show you tomorrow.
Yeah,
that was quite funny. It's like I've got another mask that I already had, so sort of tried that out, but there are reasons why that won't work. But maybe we'll save that for tomorrow. And I've got a few really creepy ones that I would just have to modify a little bit because I've got some Venetian masks on my wall up in the bedroom. And I love them. He thinks they're creepy. And so we've compromised and they're still on the bedroom wall. But yeah, they've just got a very small... They've got like 2 nostril holes and a very small mouth hole. And so actually just putting a bit of material on the inside of them would probably work quite well. And they'd look quite something.
Well, you could wear those. I haven't said you can't wear them.
I didn't say you deny. I might.
No, but I just said
They have got bells on them though, so you will hear me coming.
One. That'd be good. Just like a plague doctor and a Venetian
little
bell
jingly, woman. The Venetian bell woman.
Yes.
Yeah. So
the bell women of Venice. We've all heard of those.
So that's something that. So you bought that. So we'll show that to you when it gets here, undoubtedly.
I also bought a cheap fancy dress Zorro outfit.
You didn't tell me that bit.
Because I wanted to have the cape and the hat that the plague doctors would have worn as well.
Would they have had a cape?
Well, maybe like a long
sort of trench coaty.
Sort of trench coat, yeah, or a frock coat.
Ah.
But frock coats are expensive, and
so
Zorro costumes
outfit.
are cheap. But you have like a cape. It's a cape with like a headpiece which would like cover the head and the neck.
Ah, okay.
And then they wore like
I actually sort of thought like a hood
a flat
would be good with it.
With a brim, so it's kind of creating the effect. It's going to be quite striking.
We've gone mental.
Quite striking.
I think that the fine, like whatever was holding it together has snapped.
I don't know if I would...
I'm really wishing I'd taken this off before we started filming now, because now it's starting to be really hard and I really want to peel it.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if I would have bought a plague mask under usual circumstances, but of course not. Obviously not.
No.
Yeah, no, that probably is a bad sign for all of us.
You wouldn't have considered wearing it in public for no real, you would have been self-conscious about that, I'm sure.
Well, I may yet become self-conscious when I'm out and about wearing it, but at least no one will know it's me.
Yeah, you have to make sure you're not wearing anything distinctive. I really want to fiddle with this now. Should I peel it off?
What, on camera?
Yeah, I won't show them the stuff, but...
What will it look like? You do your... I'm waiting until afterwards, but you can do yours if you want.
I'm going to do it. My face will just look quite red.
It's like if someone's had plastic surgery and we're revealing Ellie's new nose.
It won't look very exciting to these guys, but if you had like a high definition camera up close, it would. Oh, it feels good. Oh, that's the stuff. Oh, I'm going to save that. Yeah.
Oh. Nice.
I'm not going to let him have a look, because I don't want him to be
no, that's it.
comparing it to his own.
All the gross stuff out of her face, that's a treat for later. So...
Yeah. Oh, that's satisfying.
Man.
Yeah.
Lucky man.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
What are we Was there anything else we needed to talk about?
Yeah, there were a few things. Right.
Serious business now, probably.
Yes, we will get onto the serious stuff. So actually, the talk of masks was fairly serious, and the fact that we sort of suspected that the plot keeps changing.
We've taken it on a kind of frivolous direction, but that is the current advice: is we should all be wearing masks when we go out to the shops.
So we will
to protect ourselves and each other. And that's the other thing today, of course, is that I'm supposedly.
You're allowed out to
now.
like public
I've been
places
in
with people
quarantine
now.
for 14 days in isolation, and now I'm allowed out to the shops. And I was sort of not looking forward to it is quite the word, but I think I was feeling a bit cooped up about not being able to go.
Yeah.
I know it's not going to be a fun trip to the shops. You know, it's not going to be like a trip out, but just being able to go and get some ingredients and things and be able to see for myself what was on the shelves, I was quite kind of frustrated not being able to do that, quite keen to do it, and now it's come around I could have done it today, and I haven't been. I've been to the shops all day.
No. And I was very restrained because actually I don't have any wine, and I could have sent you. You offered, and I was like, not just for wine. Let's wait till we need some more things.
I may yet go.
I might need wine tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we'll
Based
also
on
need other
today's
food.
grumpiness, I might try and provide wine tomorrow, and also get some other bits and pieces while I'm there. But I haven't actually bothered. It's just knowing that you can is half the thing, isn't it? But we were going to talk about some more serious bits.
We'll take it back. So as I've taken to sort of starting to warn people when we're going to talk about something grim, and this is grim, what we're about to talk about. So feel free to skip ahead. Today's UK death toll is getting up very uncomfortably close to the 1,000 people per day mark. There were, I think, 936 deaths, definitely due to COVID, over the last 24 hours. That does not include people at home or in care homes. That is only people who are in hospital. There are people we know who have it and who have chosen to stay at home because they have underlying health problems and things like that. And that has actually been the advice to people who, there's no other kind way of saying it, but they would not be in priority groups if they were to go to hospital. So that number is not actually even representative of how many people we've actually lost. And that sort of number in a day. So there are still some bonkers people out there who are sort of saying things along the line of, oh, well, we lose sort of 10,000 people to flu every year. I'm like, yeah, but not 1,000 people in a day. And we're not at the peak yet. So that is pretty terrifying. Further to the fear on that front, a study has come out. Now you'll have to forgive me, I'm going to have to look at my notes for the initials for this, but it's by the IHME, which is the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation, which is an organisation in Seattle. So they are American, so they're not sort of biased to any particular UK or European countries. They have done a study based on the modelling that has been given to them on the data from all of the governments in Europe, and actually globally, but when they're talking about Europe in this study. And they are fairly confident in saying that they are pretty sure that the UK will have the highest death toll of Europe throughout this, and that they think that we will probably have about 40% of Europe's total when it comes to the death toll. The reasons for that are varied, and they have justified why they've said that, and they're basing those models on the information that our government has given them. The three main reasons are sort of what our hospital and healthcare capacity is and is able to look after, at what stage we brought in lockdown measures compared to other countries that are further ahead in their outbreaks, and the strictness of those lockdown measures. Basically, our measures are a lot more relaxed than some other countries. Our testing has been largely non-existent, and our hospitals are not equipped to handle the workload that perhaps other European countries are better prepared for. The one that seems to be really nailing this is Germany. There's a few that are doing very well, actually, but Germany basically went on to very strict lockdown measures quite early on, but also were testing everyone and contact tracing anyone who'd been in contact with them, putting them into quarantine, so massively reduced the spread, and also bulked up their healthcare provisions very early on, to the extent which actually neighbouring countries are sending people to German hospitals because they are not at capacity. They've got more room. That is not the case that we're in, and we are far earlier in our outbreak here and basically had a massive head start, which we
squandered.
Did fuck all with.
That's a less polite way of putting it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that deserved a fuck all. But yeah, so that's very sobering. And also maybe the fact that I was reading that while I was sitting in the garden whilst getting annoyed with neighbours for listening to Kiss FM, I think maybe my emotional take going into a slightly more negative place might have been somewhat to do with that kind of element of things as well, because there's that kind of gut fear response, which then that's those numbers are too big. I can't even get my head around it, really. And that takes you to quite a bad place. And then on the more sort of tangible extent, a good friend of mine mentioned that 3 of her parents, her parents have lost 3 people to COVID already. Her parents have lost 3 people already. I have only been, thankfully, until now, and anyone suffering from this is obviously awful, but thankfully I haven't had a direct personal link yet. But I do say yet, because that seems to be what these numbers are suggesting. And when you're looking at numbers of almost 1,000 a day, and we're not at peak yet, their talk of 20,000 total, I think, has gone out of the window. It has to have, because we're not at peak yet, and those sorts of numbers every day are going to rack up quite swiftly. We don't know where we are in terms of the peak, and they keep sort of saying that they don't really know, they need more data, and the thing that's a real kicker with this particular illness is the incubation period. Just means that after you've done stuff, you don't know if they're having an effect yet for a couple of weeks. But that's a pretty grim point to end on, and we have actually gone over half an hour.
Shall we quickly then talk just something very light to kind of wrap things up? Just to say, we mentioned that there are National Theatre plays. We watched last night.
There we go, on to nicer things.
Right, so we watched a National Theatre play, a production of One Man, Two Governors.
And it was really good.
Starring James Corden.
Yes.
And
I really enjoyed it.
Very charismatic in the lead role. Really enjoyed him. There was more audience interaction than I was expecting.
Yes, quite a lot, actually.
I suspect a degree of kind of plants and things.
But
fine. That's, it's all part of it.
But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it, actually. I thought it was very funny. The intricacies of everything that's interlocking and going on of it all. And it sort of, there's a reason why people say, oh, what a farce, because it is just descending into insanity. But it all just kind of works. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good fun. So I will definitely be making a point to whatever other shows that they're going to put on. I'm going to definitely give them a watch, because it did feel quite like being at the theatre to an extent. Because it sort of did. You had the laughter. It was shot very well. It was like having a good seat at the theatre, but you could do it in your PJs.
And the next one they've got is Jane Eyre.
And we could
also...
I don't really know the story of Jane Eyre.
No.